Hey everyone, it's Matt here once again, and this is another episode of the Wormhole Manifest podcast. I have to admit, things have been challenging lately, which is why it's taken so long to release this episode. I have recorded it over a month ago now, and I have just had so much going on with work and like selling some things on eBay and visiting some friends out of town. That was almost a month ago as well. So this episode came out or was recorded a couple weeks before that. And I was going to release it before I left, but I ended up not doing that, and I put it off, and then one thing led to another, and things just kept building up. But anyway, I was visiting some friends out of town, and that was about a month ago, and like ever since I got back, things have just got really busy with work, and lots of other things were coming up, and so this after recording this episode you're about to hear, it's things just were kind of crazy for a while, and so I just want to sit down. And I just didn't, I didn't want to sit down for several hours and edit audio to get the show sounding how I want it, which is what I normally do. So instead of putting more time into the sound quality, I've decided to do minimal editing on this episode and put more effort into this kind of intro to catch you all up on a few things. First of all, even though I've said it's been challenging and difficult to get this episode out, I do have to say that even up to about 3 years ago or so, doing something like this would have been close to impossible back then. So at least I feel that even when things get difficult, I do feel that I am better equipped these days to handle these sorts of things. As I've recognized and worked towards building up the tools to cope better with my more difficult mental health days. I say it's been difficult, but work has been busy, and all of my life things have been, being taken care of and actually taken care of rather well lately, or at least much better than 3 years ago or so, when I was maybe at my worst I've ever been. The thing about having the tools to be able to take care of yourself and adapt your mindset to whatever needs to be taken care of, one thing that has kind of made me take a few steps back is the simple fact that when I was out of town last month visiting friends, I finally had a chance to stop on my parents' gravesite to see if they had ever put down the headstone back for my mom, in which I believe they were supposed to add my dad's information to. The sad part is that I can't remember what was supposed to happen with that. My dad passed away in 2013. We had his funeral and everything, and then months and years after that, I had some major financial difficulties and was barely able to pay rent, let alone the bill to have a headstone added to my parents' grave. So I dodged the funeral bill collectors for months, and then years, everything went to collections, and eventually they just stopped bothering me. So I don't know if it was like written off or what, but I just didn't think about it. But it's been something that's, sat in the back of my mind. Like, I didn't finish paying for that, and I don't know if my mom had a headstone that my dad and my brother, I think, were supposed to take care of back when my mom passed. So I wasn't sure how that all worked out, but I somewhat remember my mom having one. And then I think when I was discussing and making all the arrangements for my dad's funeral, they were supposed to take that stone and then add my dad's information to it. I think. I'm not 100% sure, because back then I was having a really difficult time. I was having back pain, chronic back issues. I was popping pain pills all the time and drinking like a fifth of vodka every day, so who knows what was supposed to go on with that. Anyway, and I was also just getting out of the military, and I was trying to run my own business at the time. Well, maybe that was like a year or so later, and after my other brother had passed too, because my brother Mark passed like 3 or 4 months after my dad did. So that's kind of when I snapped. That's when I broke, because so many people that I was close to had passed, and I just I wasn't dealing with it well, and I wasn't dealing with it in a healthy way. So I just kind of, started letting everything go, even though I was like focusing all my energy into starting this business after I had just retired from the military. So I was kind of like just replacing things that instead of taking care of what I wanted or should have been doing, I was like just, putting all my effort and focus into some other things that I thought was going to help me get ahead. But it just ended up not being the way to go. But now that I'm on the mend, and learning some better coping strategies, and have blocked out a huge amount of toxic folks from my life, and have adopted a bunch of new friends that align more with positive mindsets and genuinely want to help and support each other by sharing new tools and how to work through things like trauma and other mental health issues. So now, with the last few years of working towards a new and better me, I was kind of struck with this weird feeling like, oh yeah, there are more things from my past that still aren't resolved. Even though I've worked through so much these past few years during my healing journey, as I call it, I'm sure there's even more that I will come to realize that I still didn't handle or get taken care of back then, and that I have totally forgotten about. But that shouldn't be a huge setback. But for some reason, I find myself focusing hard on the now and present issues instead of going into those things that are still hanging over me, just waiting to drop like a ton of bricks or a piano in an old Looney Tunes cartoon. Acme anvils aside, once again, I do feel at least I'm better prepared to handle those heavy cartoon objects of the mind when they do appear, even though it still may take me a few minutes or days or weeks to deal with them in a much more positive manner. They will still get taken care of. But that doesn't mean that it's any easier. The tasks or troubles value doesn't diminish over time. It's just that our mind's way of processing things, or those things, can be more flexible and bend more without completely breaking, like it could potentially when we're not equipped with the right tools to process those events or stressful situations. So regardless, it's much better to bend than to break. So again, I'm not breaking here. I have just, I just have to be flexible and process these things, like, finding out that there was no headstone at my parents' grave, even though it's been like almost 10 years. And then to create a plan to take care of whatever it is, and those other things that I haven't taken care of that I may remember one day. And in this case, it's try to get my financial situation figured out a bit better, so I can eventually get that headstone put back or put on the grave, my parents' graves, because right now it's just a blank space on the ground next to my brother John's headstone that is still there, and that's the only marker to let me know, or other family, where they are, in that little spot at the cemetery. But at least now I know the status, which I guess is a bit of a weight off my shoulders, because I have been wondering for a long time, but I just didn't. I just kept throwing it in the back burner. Plus, I'm not in that area anymore very often. So it's more of like the Schrodinger's cat situation, where I wouldn't have checked. If I wouldn't have checked, then I wouldn't have known, and therefore the headstone would be there, both there and not there at the same time. But I think for me, I do feel both better and not better for knowing. At least now I know that I do eventually need to get that taken care of, and that kind of sucks, when there's no other family to help me out with that. I couldn't even afford the $4,000 to pay off the funeral costs at that time. So this adds a little bit more of that burden to my financial situation that I'm trying to get figured out, while at the same time, I know that it's not the priority, because I know my parents aren't going anywhere, and I need to put my own oxygen mask on first before I help people that are no longer with us, or else I will be right there along with them. So even though I just plan to either be cremated and my ashes spread somewhere, or cryogenically frozen just before I die until they can find a cure for whatever was ailing me. I know that it's something that I know the status of, and I will eventually get taken care of. Anyways, with all that aside, I mean, that's not the whole thing that was keeping me down. It was just kind of a thing that was in the back of my mind that I found out about right when I was leaving after having a really good weekend with some friends. I needed that time away because I've just been home and stuck here doing the day in, day out for a very long time, and I hadn't had like a break really. And you got to take breaks. That's like very important, you know, even if it's just to go walk around the block, which I've been doing that pretty often here lately too, or visiting the state park and doing some hiking on trails, which I've found to be pretty fun too. Just get out there, clear the mind. So anyway, yeah, again, with all that aside, I'm excited to get this episode out and the other ones I've recorded since, which I think there was only one more after this that I have already recorded, which was 1 week after this one was recorded. I was putting too much into, getting the content recorded. But that also adds to the stress, just knowing I have all this content sitting there waiting for me to do something with it. But I digress. This episode you're about to hear was a really nice discussion with a good friend from a long time ago when I used to run the anime viewing rooms at the local science fiction conventions. Christopher, aka Tiger Roth, was one of the board members of those conventions, and even though we only met in real life a few handfuls of times, we've kept in touch through social media during my travels and moves around the country with my jobs and different work that I've done. Although not as much as I would have liked, life takes us in all these different directions, and we, went a long spell without any contact. But, he was there, I was where I was. But more recently, his Twitter account has blown up, so I contacted him kind of out of the blue about being on the show so that we could really reconnect after so long. And we did just that and had a great time. The conversation covers a lot of ground, everything from talking about my old hometowns, fine eateries, some cool like haunted sites and underground tunnels and caves and things like that. Lots of cooking and spices, furry conventions and what it's about, like being a furry, and the many projects that have kept Tiger a busy guy. It was really nice to reconnect after so long and to dig into some of the things that we do. And of course, we get a little into the mental health side of things, which is the whole point of this show anyway, as well as to discuss like pop culture and a bit of everything that interests me and interests us and things that we're both into that we connect over. So, okay, one more thing, just a reminder. We never know what someone is going through out there in the world, whether it's a neighbor or a random stranger in the convenience store or even a close friend sometimes. So please, please, please always remember to be mindful of your surroundings and the people that inhabit those areas just outside of our immediate little bubbles. A little kindness can go a long way. So say something nice, or maybe show a quick smile, or hold a door for someone. And if you don't feel like it, that's okay too. It's okay to not be okay. But it's not okay to go out of your way to make someone feel bad just because you feel bad. So keep things in perspective, because maybe someone else, no matter how bad of a day you yourself are having right now, may be having one that's just a bit worse. So let's be kind to each other out there, or at the very least, don't make things any worse. The very definition of mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So without further ado, please enjoy this episode of the Wormhole Manifest podcast with minimal editing for sound quality, because I just don't have it in me to go through every minute line by line to ensure the quality is up to my usual OCD standards. I appreciate you all, and I really appreciate you supporting the show and for listening. So take care, everyone, and on with the show. All right, everybody, welcome back once again to the Wormhole Manifest podcast. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we have another brand new special guest new to the show. Not new to me. We kind of go back a ways, but it's been a long time since we've actually caught up. So this is going to be really exciting for me because we haven't, physically, even though this is virtual in the studio, we haven't talked in so long. Just maybe a little banter here and there on the different social media sources, but we go back a good ways. Like man, it was before I had kids, so like 18 years, I guess, was something like that. I'm like, geez, where'd the time go? Anyway, everybody, welcome Christopher Tiger Roth, aka Papa Woof und Krampus in Blicken from Twitter, or at Woof Night on Twitter. Welcome to the show, man.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Matt.
So how have you been?
Life's an adventure.
Yeah, it truly is. I'm actually going to turn...
Word of advice to everybody: if you buy a 100-year-old house, be prepared for something like the money pit.
Oh. Yeah, I understand that.
That's most of our life these days.
Wow, so man, it has been a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like if we want to like take a quick trip down memory lane, I first met you when I had started my anime club when I was brand new out of the Marine Corps. I did 5 years in the Marines, and then I got out and I moved back to the hometown, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start an anime fan club. And so I did that. And then I forget even how I heard about you and the rest of the people that were on the board for that that sci-fi. It was a sci-fi convention.
Yeah.
And you guys wanted to have an anime video room running, and I had like this like AV equipment and projector and all that stuff. It was the you told me before. What was that convention?
That was Name That Con.
I don't know if that was the one
And then we had Show Me Con.
Show Me Con. That definitely rings a bell. Now, didn't Show Me Con, did it run for 2 years or something like that?
3.
Like kind of a, and I did both of those.
Yeah.
And then I had gotten hired with the Boeing company, and they had moved me to the East Coast. So I had to like leave my hometown. I had to leave the anime club, everything behind, because my job was like, you need to go. And I was like, oh man.
Yeah, because the last year you were here, I had rented your gear from you from my furry convention, Method Fur Meet in Memphis.
Oh yeah.
Because I came down to your house on Grand to pick it up.
I was kind of wondering. I was wondering if we had like some kind of meeting at my house there for either the convention or something, and I didn't know, like, because you mentioned that you knew where I used to live, and I was like, I don't remember a lot of people knowing where I lived, except for. So I was like, yeah, but I do miss that area and all that stuff, but I only had that house for like a year. I think it was very short lived, and I had a house before the one on Grand on 38th Street off of Merrimack, and I lived there for almost a year too, and I that was like my initial. We bought the house, and it was kind of a rental thing. Like I was renting half of it and living in the other half, so it was kind of a weird venture, but so much stuff had taken place back then, and it was just I was all over the place trying to find myself after getting out of the military, and instead of like really finding myself and like figuring out what I wanted to do, I went ahead and joined the local Air National Guard unit. So I was like, I might as well keep my time going, and then get that military retirement in 20 years, or at least do my 20 years, and then by the time I'm at retirement age, I can be pulling those extra benefits. So, but yeah, anyway, like that was a crazy time. Those conventions were a lot of fun. I loved doing the anime, setting up the video rooms, and everybody could come in and chill out and hang out and watch like all that anime that I was playing. I had a computer hooked up, and I think maybe a DVD player and like VCR and all kinds of stuff.
And you had one of the projectors, which were like freaking expensive at that time.
Yeah. I had always wanted a projector, and I tried to. I think the first convention that I did with you guys, I borrowed a projector because my father-in-law at the time worked for an AV company, and he could get those, so he let me borrow one for the first convention. But he was like swearing up and down. He's like, "You better tie chains around that. You better lock it down because if that disappears, you are gonna owe me." You know, and you're right, they were really expensive.
Yeah.
And then I ended up buying one later on because I was like, I really got to have one of these because I want to do these conventions and stuff like that. I love the whole AV thing and, setting up those types of things. And I had a bunch of other weird projects on the side too. I used to, the High Point uh, down there, I used to do I was friends with a DJ and he said, let's do a VJ. He used to do like ladies 80s night or 80s something ladies night at the High Point, and he wanted me to play all like old 80s cartoons and anime and stuff, so like in the background. So he's doing the music stuff, so it's kind of like I was making these little anime music videos with 80s anime while he was playing 80s music, and it was a really good time. So I was like, at least I'm using my projector because I didn't have really a place to use it at home. But
Well,
yeah, it was
speaking
fun.
of
It
High
was fun
Point,
stuff.
St. Louis Film Festival just bought it.
Mm, that's pretty cool. I think there was like right next to the High Point, or even maybe it was even. Wait, isn't the High Point? Wasn't it actually like a theater, or was it kind of like
Yeah,
a performing arts type
it's
thing? But then there was a bar upstairs,
yeah,
and that's where I used to go do the VJ thing. Was up there. Um,
yeah, because Del Taco is right down the street.
oh man, yeah. I haven't had Del Taco in so long. Is it still there?
No, it's now High Point Drive-In.
Oh wow. There's so much that has changed. The last time I was there, actually, I think I told you, like the only times I've been back to St. Louis has either been for funerals for my old family and stuff
Yeah,
that's still there, or like when I was still in the military at that unit in St. Louis, I would have to go from Maryland and basically either fly or drive back to do my drill weekends. And so it was like, because if you don't make it to drill weekend, you have to make up that time before the end of the year. So since I was working on the East Coast and I was doing my guard stuff in St. Louis at the unit there, um, they would tell me that you wouldn't get a good year towards retirement unless you get those points, because every drill weekend you get so many points per drill weekend, and if you miss those, even if you miss one weekend, like and you don't make it up, that counts against you for a whole year,
oh
like a whole
jeez.
year of points against you that you either have to make up at the end to get the points, or you just lose it and you know don't get as much for your retirement basically.
Yeah.
So it's like, well shit, I better make it back. So I wheeled and dealed, made a bunch of deals for them to let me come back and make up the drill weekends that I'd missed. I think the longest I went was about 5 months. I didn't come back and do a drill weekend. It's hard, man. You can't travel from the East Coast to the center of the Midwest, like to work for one weekend. It's like I had other shit I was doing. So it's like, but I would work out a deal where I would go back for like a week at a time and take off from my regular job and just do guard stuff. And then they would let me make up all those days that I
Oh,
missed.
that's cool.
So yeah, fortunately, but then they shut the base down. And that was like the most recent thing. I moved from Maryland out to where I'm at now because um, they were starting to hire people out at the base where I'm at right now with the B-2 bombers at Whiteman. So they were like, let's shut down. They were shutting down St. Louis, and then they were transitioning a lot of people out here or to other units. So it was kind of a crazy thing. But I mean, I'm getting too deep into the woods about all that stuff. reminiscing, but like, what have you been up to? Like, that's what I want to know. I like to do these shows because I want to like interview people, and
Yeah.
try to for my own mental health, because for a long period of time, and if people that have listened to the past episodes, that I went for like several years without even being able to speak. So like it's I'm catching up with all that and trying to learn how to talk. It's like I used to be good at like customer service and all that stuff, and going to the conventions like with you guys and talking to people about, I had an anime fan club, so I had to know how to talk to people back then, and bring people in that were interested in the same stuff. But I met you there at ShowMeCon, um, the convention was just amazing. Like, and the way you guys set everything up and all that, and it was the first one I had done like that. So, have you been doing any of that kind of stuff? I know you're doing the furry stuff, right?
Yep. We are about 700 people every year. It's over Labor Day weekend in Memphis. Well, actually, in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Um, we're at the original Holiday Inn Executive Training Center because Holiday Inn was actually founded in Olive Branch, Mississippi. And I've been con director there for 24 years now.
I was gonna say that it must have been going on a long time, because you were talking about it back then, and like I
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
I didn't even have kids back then, and my oldest kid now just turned 17, if you can believe that. So
yeah.
like it's crazy. So
But
I'm like
yeah,
17.
we do all the convention prep here in St. Louis. The Wednesday before, we load everything into a 26-foot Penske truck, drive everything to Memphis, unload, start the convention. Me and the other half actually run the Critter Cafe or Con Suite. We actually do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 times during the weekend. We do food for 100,
Wow.
and all that's prepped here in St. Louis and then frozen and packed down. And so we've
Man.
got this as a routine now.
So let's catch up the listeners out there. If people don't know, I assume most people have heard what a furry is by now.
Good
I
or
would
bad?
I would expect they know the word at least.
Yeah.
And a funny side note is that my daughter is really into drawing the anthropomorphic characters,
Uh-huh.
and she was calling them her furry characters, and I was like, oh really? I'm like, do you like furries? She's like, yeah, I want to be a furry, and I was like, I know a furry, I know people that go to conventions that do that, and I was like, it's pretty cool if you like that, and you have her art. She's coming along. She's only 12, but like her art is getting really good. She likes to do these little animations and stuff, and I'm like, makes these little cat people and stuff, and I'm like, oh, they're so cute.
We should bring her down to MFM sometime. The convention has a weird history. The godfather of the convention, the founder, it actually started as pizza and movies in his apartment,
Oh wow.
and just kind of exploded from there. We still do pizza for the entire convention every year, but yeah, we're family friendly, big, giant, the South's largest pizza party.
So if we could like catch up the listeners, like in like, I guess in loose terms, like what in the easiest way to understand like is a furry, and how would you explain it to someone who has never heard of it, or who may have heard it and with more of a negative connotation to it? Um,
Furry is anything as well. You use the magic word anthropomorphic, which is animals with human characteristics. So it can be, we've grown up with cartoons with talking
yeah,
animals.
yeah.
Those are anthropomorphic characters, and the majority of the furry conventions, you've got art, you've got writing, you've got gaming, um, you've got costuming, or what they're called in furry fursuits, and A little bit of
Would you
everything.
say it's similar to like cosplay? Because I know
Oh, very
there's
much so.
there's
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, and everybody has heard of cosplay, and they see. I think a lot of that gets negative kind of a tone to it to
yeah.
people that are not so open minded about things because they're like, why, you know, some people may think that cosplay is just like really cute girls dressing up in these like schoolgirl or crazy character outfits, but it's like no, it's you know, I went to another convention recently, and some of these costumes these people make themselves, and they're so elaborate and detailed, and the hours and money people put into this stuff, it's just amazing. So it's like it's just a huge hobby, and
Oh yeah.
no matter which way you look on social media, you're bound to find some variation or form of cosplay, and I think it's really interesting, just to see that amount of detail and the passion that it takes to put in to create these
Oh
things.
yeah.
It's
Well,
amazing.
some of the costumes, I mean, they cost as much as a new car. Um, I mean, I've got several werewolves. I've got several Krampus, which are familiar with the Christmas demons. My Bleakin is, I think, the only full one in existence. The Bleakin from Bob's Burgers, which is their version of Krampus.
I was wondering what that was.
Yeah.
I don't know if I haven't seen that or what, because like I mean I watch a lot of Bob's Burgers, so I was like, I don't know
The,
if I've
the giant
missed that.
thing with antlers and the furry round there and doing it ends up with Miss Triple Xmas doing a giant Christmas song at a rave in a warehouse.
Man. Oh, didn't they had to like go down some steps, and
Yeah,
they couldn't get back out, like the door
right.
locked behind them. Oh, okay. I'm still making my way through some of the older seasons, and I think that's not too old of a season. It's fairly recent, but there's a lot of episodes, man. That's
There are, but yeah,
it's
I
really
mean,
funny though. It's hilarious.
my latest werewolf that I just got, well, last year now. God, how time flies. Um, one of my good friends is actually one of the Universal creators down in Florida, and he built the werewolf for me. So it's fun running around.
Now,
I'm
is
sure.
that you in your profile picture on Twitter?
Uh huh. Yeah.
Okay.
Um.
I figured as much, but and I think I remember seeing you in you were in costume at one of the conventions. I don't know if
Yeah.
you were in costume in the first convention, but I remember the second convention was a different kind of hotel, and I
Yeah.
remember the video room was in like a weird little like hotel room. It just was shaped different. It was like a really like a kind of a long room, and not like the big banquet center like the other first
That was
hotel.
Hilton Airport.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um.
Man, it's crazy how much I remember about that convention. Um, because like with all the other stuff that I've been through over the past, couple decades, it's like, you know, I look back and there's some things that I struggle to remember, but the Show Me Con, I mean, of course, I couldn't remember the name. I had to ask you, but like the details of the event. I mean, I remember I almost passed out because I gave blood because they were doing a blood drive there, and I think that's when I realized that I don't. I mean, I kind of knew that I had an issue when I look at blood being drawn. It makes me feel woozy, but like that happened again at the convention, and that kind of sealed the deal. I'm like, if I go to give blood, which I have to do tomorrow morning, actually, I have to go to the local VA here and get some blood drawn for just some other random annual test or whatever. But like, I don't look at it. I have to look away because if I want to be able to stand up and walk out of there, I just can't see it. And it's weird because I watch horror movies and all kinds of
Yeah.
stuff, and it doesn't bother me. But my own blood being drawn, and I'm like, I turn white as a ghost, and I'm like, and that happened at the convention, and I was like, oh, I got to get back to the video room. I was like pale, but uh,
Yeah.
yeah, there was.
I love doing the conventions here. I mean, I made some good friends. Dick Durock, the Swamp Thing. Got to meet him and his wife at Show Me Con, and got an
Yeah.
award from George Takei on my werewolf that's in my icon pick on Twitter.
Cool.
For it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of great people meet at the conventions, and it's like with MFM. We call it the furry family reunion because this is the only time a year that we get to see each other, and that's
Hmm.
with a lot of the conventions is
And that's a long time for a convention to be running because there's even with me, I was mainly geared towards the anime conventions because I did a lot of those, and I was running an anime fan club, and I would try to go to as many anime conventions as I could back in the I'd say mid to late '90s and then early 2000s, and then job and life and kids and all that stuff kind of just took over and I wasn't able to go as much. I would still go every once in a while. And then of course more recently then they had a pandemic and then it just, makes it you can't go out and do anything. Everybody's on lockdown.
yeah,
But
we had to
like
do a year virtual.
mm, and that makes sense. I think a lot of people were trying to do things, but it's weird that a lot of conventions I remember going to, especially the ones in like Texas, are like not even around anymore. They're like non-existent. The
Well,
one of
pretty
the
much all we
biggest
have here
ones,
is Archon.
huh?
Pretty much all we have here now is Archon.
And I remember that one. That one had been around for a long
Yeah.
time. Um, is that one mainly like comics and sci-fi and stuff,
Oh, it's everything.
or everything? Just a fandom
Yeah.
get together. Yeah. Um, let's see. So as far as furries go, and I know there's people I've heard stories and people are like I guess people that don't understand it, and that kind of goes with any kind of people that are into a fandom. Like so again with the like to paint a picture in a more positive light. And you said the convention down there in Memphis is like family friendly and all
Yeah.
that stuff. So like, like my daughter, um, I wouldn't think twice if she came to me at 12 and said, "Hey dad, there's a furry convention. Can I go?" And I'd be like, "Okay, I'm taking you." Like as long as I get to go too,
Yeah.
like I want to go just to see
Yeah.
what it's like because I've never been to one.
I
But
mean, we have kids track. We've got a lot of kids um, that come, and we've got kids that have literally grown up at the convention. I mean, one of my good friends, she goes by Paddlefoot. Um, I think she was 12 at her first one, and now
oh wow.
she's married and everything.
Wow. It always amazes me going to any kind of convention and seeing the little kids that's like this, like that is like the next generation of fans for this particular subject or whatever, like I've been to anime conventions where, the little kid is dressed like a Goku from Dragon Ball, and it's just like, it's so cute. Or like a little girl is like Sailor Moon. And it's just all these different things that it's like, I know about these shows and I've watched them for a long time, and then seeing the next generation of like otaku or whatever. The thing that bugs me though is like I have 3 kids and none of them are in anime. I'm like, how did this happen? Where did I go wrong? What happened? I
Well,
failed.
and for the people that don't understand the cosplay or the fursuits or whatever, being an adult sucks. I mean, we bills, repairs, everything else you have to go to. With the costumes, you can be somebody else or something else for a while and
Yeah.
just totally. That's I don't know if you remember the St. Louis Renaissance Festival, don't you?
What was it?
The St. Louis
Renaissance?
Renaissance Festival.
Is that kind of like a Ren fair or like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
I've
South.
been to the Scarborough Fair, which is down it was down in Texas, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Once I went to that.
Well, the one up here for several years, they actually did a haunted forest on the grounds of the Ren Fair, and
Oh wow.
I werewolfed out there for quite a while, and nothing like being out in the middle and natural fog rolling in, and
Oh yeah.
the trails are lit by tiki torch, and I'm a proud holder of a pants sweater award.
Yeah, it sets that whole vibe, that
Yeah,
whole mood for, you know, the like autumn or scary movies or, just
yeah.
that's cool. That, it sounds like a lot of fun actually. Like um the the only time I've cosplayed, like other than like when I was a kid doing Halloween costumes, um for a very short period of time before I even left St. Louis to go in the military, I was in a Doctor Who fan club for a little bit.
Oh yeah.
And I put together like my own version of it was like a fan fiction basically costume of my own. I like went to like a couple different Goodwills or like and got things and got this cool coat that was like real long and I had this shirt and I actually put these like question marks on the lapel and I had a tie and all this stuff and I'm like I kind of made up in my mind that if the Doctor had regenerated another time because at this time the show was still on hiatus and they
Yeah,
hadn't rebooted with the 2005 reboot, um,
that was
which
so long.
basically took place directly after the that last movie or whatever they made. But like, so I was kind of in between there. So I'm like, it's perfectly legible. I could be the next Doctor. You know, I could be the next Doctor, and I would dress up like that. I sometimes I would dress up like that and go to work and in the costume and they didn't care as long as I still wore my hat because I was working at the St. Louis Bread Company at the Galleria Mall. And so I had my Breadco hat on, but I still had my shirt with the question marks and and all that. And it was kind of it was fun. And I had this whole story in my mind of like what had happened after the show went on hiatus, and I basically the Doctor didn't cease existing. There was more stuff after that,
Yeah,
and there was even like audio dramas that they still published and everything. But I kind of stepped in my own little reality or my own universe and created a world where the Doctor regenerated once again, and it was me. You know,
and that's a good escape, isn't it?
yeah, yeah, it was awesome. And the funny thing about that whole thing with me being a Doctor Who fan is that my name is Matt Smith. And then in the new reboot series about 10 years ago or maybe a little more, an actor with my same name actually got the role. And so it's like we look nothing alike, but I still think, and he's the youngest character, or is the youngest actor to play the Doctor
Yeah,
in the whole run of the show, and he did a really good job, I
yeah, you
thought.
really.
And I'm still a big fan of that show. And it's like it pisses me off that we have to wait so long in between episodes or in between seasons. And with the pandemic, that made it even worse. So
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. We actually built. We had a Doctor Who theme one year at MFM, and we actually built a life-size TARDIS
oh
that
wow.
was in the BBC blue and everything. That was
A
a lot
friend,
of fun to carry to
I
Memphis.
wonder if a friend of mine had something to do with that because he went to a convention once and he worked with this other guy and they built a TARDIS. But this friend of mine's an engineer that I worked with, and he worked in the aviation field. But he 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 designed the specs for everything, had it all measured out, and it was a very elaborate prop, I guess you would say. And it's probably even on par or even better than the original props that they have at BBC in the UK for filming because he had the details down on this thing and it was just amazing. And when people do that, and I know a lot of other people have done the same thing, but it's just like it's amazing when they put that much effort into creating something like that. It's
Yeah,
awesome, you know. I wanted one for the longest time. I'm like, if I build a house, I'm gonna have a corner that has a TARDIS sitting in the corner. But like when you go in, it's gonna lead into a whole other like underground, like bunker. I'm gonna take an underground bunker and convert that into looking like the inside of a TARDIS. So it's like you're just walking. Hey, what's that blue police box there in there? And just
Well, they've
I'm like,
got one of the missile silos for sale here in Missouri.
I'd like to get one of those. Honestly, it would be pretty awesome. Especially with the climate of the world and everything that's going on. It's like,
Yeah.
man, I keep telling my wife, I was like, I'm gonna, if we get a bunch of property somewhere, I'm gonna have a whole underground thing, and it's like it's gonna be kind of like a bat cave, but it'll be a mat cave. It's gonna be like the mat cave, but it's gonna be like all kinds of high tech stuff, just like Batman would have, like big huge screens and
Well, speaking of Batman, did you know that on the original 60s Batman series, when he has the big plexiglass map of Gotham City, that's actually downtown St. Louis?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like the map on the
Yeah.
board there?
Yeah, it's downtown St. Louis.
Oh, wow. I did not know that. And if I had heard that in the past, I definitely don't remember it, but that is cool. That's
I
like
love stupid
some
little
quick
St. Louis
trivia.
trip.
Um, so venturing forward, so we're caught up with what's going on. You're doing the furries. We explain that to the listeners. And going off what I just said about the climate of the world, like I've realized, and I try to tell everyone that I gear this show loosely. It has an overall main topic or theme of mental health awareness,
Mhm.
because of all the shit that I've been through with PTSD and various mental health things. But like, I've just got done talking to my friend Lisa, who lives in California, and our whole last episode, which is coming out tomorrow, but it will be out before people listen to this episode. So we talked about all kinds of different stuff, like lots of awareness, with social justice and things like that. And I wanted to bring up, because I remember talking to you more recently about the Penzies spices.
Yeah.
Like you're like the only other person I know that has heard of Penzies spices. And it's like my wife found out about it, and we started getting a few samples and things like that and trying it and adding it to different food and meal prep and whatnot. Um, and it's awesome. It's great stuff. The thing I like about them the most, and you may agree, that is that they are very aware of the things that are going on in the world
Well,
with like,
it's Bill Penzi, the owner of the company himself. And have you signed up for their newsletter yet?
no, well, I think my wife has. She's the one that does all the ordering and everything. So, um,
Well, if
shout
she's
out to
not,
her.
I think
Rachel, not
you'll
Rach.
enjoy it too, because Bill actually on his weekly newsletters he talks about current events and what's going
Oh,
on, and he will actually gear, um, back a few years ago when the Russian investigation started. He did a whole thing about his thoughts on it and was giving away free jars of their Russian seasoning. But he's very, very forward thinking, very. Everybody has a right to be who they are.
yeah. Well, I would say that it seems more like a woke company to
Oh,
me,
yeah.
in a way that like some like right wing people will use the word woke in a negative context because they're a bunch of fucking idiots. But um, I use it because it's just you're aware to the things that are going on, the injustices and things in the world, and it's I mean obviously it's geared towards the Americans that are of Black or African American descent, and seeking justice for people like them. I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite spice by Penzies is called Outrage. And I got one here, and I want to. I finally read the back of the bottle today, and I was like, I got to read that on the show. And here it goes. And I'll quote it. It says, "The ongoing Republican effort to end our democracy is outrageous. The party's purge of those disloyal to the January 6th plotters is even worse. When does a party end and fascism begin? When good people give up being outraged. Your love is strong, use it to keep outrage alive. Outrageously good on avocados, eggs, fish, vegetables, salads, chicken, hummus, and sandwiches. Definitely good on fish. I had it on tuna today, and um, but yeah, like it says that right on the label of the jar, and nobody can see us because they'll be listening to this. Eventually, I'm going to publish videos of past episodes. Hopefully, if I get my the YouTube channel up and running. But anyway, I like that they put this kind of stuff on the labels, and it's like I can support a company like this because they're doing things to be, you know, like you said, like they're being themselves, and they're not they're not going to take any crap, and we got to keep that outrage, and it's like the outrage against the food, you know, like being bland. That's
Well, my favorite is actually Justice.
that is a good one too.
Justice has been the guiding light that has brought us through every storm. It's also a pretty tasty blend. Every meal is better with Justice. Garden tomatoes, chicken salad, asparagus, salmon, roast potatoes, even scrambled eggs become something remarkable when literally seasoned with Justice.
Nice. Yeah, it's like a quirky, fun, you know, but still kind of like stick it to the man kind of thing, you know, and that's what I can get behind. Um,
Speaking of sticking it to the man, with you having kids, I'm sure you're quite aware of the whole book banning thing.
I've heard a little bit. I've been kind of busy the last few days or weeks,
Well, Utah
but
has a new pornography ban that they put into place.
where?
And
Utah?
they have actually, somebody used the law to ban the Bible because of all the sex in the Bible. So they're
Touche.
using their own weapons against themselves.
Yeah. Well, you know, like I'll tell the listeners now that like I haven't always been the way I am now. I haven't been aware. I haven't been woke. You know, and it's a more recent thing with me recovering from a lot of my mental health issues that I started to become more aware of the things around me, and I mean, I owe it basically to my wife Rachel, who is very aware of things and of feminism and all these things, and she's taught me a lot. And I look back at who I used to be, and I think I've explained this on past episodes. Is like I'm a big fan of like Rage Against the Machine. I always have been. Like I hear the lyrics, and I'm like, yeah, we should rise up. You know, we should be pissed off that this stuff is going on, that there's this much inequality in the world, and people are getting shit on, and you know, uh, yeah, there's like the top 1% and capitalism, all this stuff's going on in the world. And it's like, I've always felt in my heart that I was an activist, but I didn't do shit about anything because of white privilege. You know, I didn't have to do anything. I didn't see it. I didn't see that I needed to because I was shielded from a lot of things. I didn't have to worry about getting pulled over and shot, you know, because of my skin color. But once I was aware of those things happening, and that it wasn't happening to me, it's just kind of like, you can't help but wake up and start to see this stuff all around you and see that it's like ingrained into so many people that they don't even realize that it's happening. And it's very sad. It's like, yes, you have to wake up. What can I do, you know, to wake you up? That's a Rage Against the Machine lyric. What do I got to do to wake you up? You know?
Well, and you have a big thing that also brought you to a forward thinking. It's called having a daughter. What kind of a world do you want her to live in?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's, if we're not aware of these types of things, and we do have kids, I've seen the outcome of people that either don't take care of their kids, or and just see how people are treated out there, and it's just it's sad. So it's, and there's just so much crazy stuff going on. I don't want to hang up too much on that negative kind of thing, but it's like we do have to be aware, and it does play a huge role in a lot of our mental health,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
in how we deal with everyday people. And I know, living in a small town here in the Midwest, it's like, uh, racism is rampant, even if it's not like blatantly obvious. It's still obvious, like the even if, and I don't even think a lot of people know, or even think that they are racist, because they're more like ignorant to the fact. They're just like, yeah, I can drive my big old truck around with my the flags on it and stuff, either a Trump flag or a um what's the other one, the don't tread on me and all this stuff. And it's like, do people even know what this means? Like, do you know what you're doing? It's
They
just
know
it's
that that's what everybody else that thinks the way they think have. They have no idea what the basis of it is.
Yeah. And
Well, I mean,
it's
COVID changed a lot for us. I mean, before COVID, I was running the convention. We ran plus three big events a year, um, and COVID hit. We really decided to take a step back, and then seeing what happened during the pandemic. I mean, there was actually a really good piece on NPR about The Last of Us. How, we always thought in the past that if there was a pandemic, everybody would be rushing for the cure.
hmm.
And what's happening with the vaccines now?
Yeah, they're
We
like fighting against it. Like, people are like, you know, don't. That's what my friend Lisa, that we were talking about on the last episode. She's a molecular biologist and works with like antibodies and vaccines and all this. And she was explaining a lot of that, the ins and outs on how like our DNA works and stuff like that, and how viruses work. And it's like, you know, unless we get a vaccine, we don't have this like natural immunity. But a lot of people are like, yeah, you need to have a natural immunity, or you should have one, and it just, I know it's more nuanced than that. And there's a lot of different gray areas, and a lot of people have different beliefs in the whole anti-vax thing. I look at it like this: like, if you take a vaccine and it does something negative to you, then you are that rare person
yeah,
that is, it's very unfortunate. I'm sorry that happened to that particular person, but it's not going to stop me from telling people to get a vaccine if there's something going on, because me, also 20 years military, you get shot up constantly with every little thing. And I've never even heard of a majority of the words that are on that shot record. And
yeah,
I've said it before, my shot record is like a CVS receipt. It's like freaking long. It's like 2 miles long. And there's words on there I can't even pronounce, but I know that stuff's in me somewhere, or maybe it has already faded out or whatever, but I'm still here today.
well, but I know what you're talking about more than you think I know, because I actually was at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
Oh,
I was actually on the mobility team. So when the Air Force decided to play war games, I was part of the line everybody would have to march through to get their stuff. And
to get the shots. Yeah. Cattle call, line up,
yep,
head
yep.
on over to the medical building down the road, and just line up and get your
Oh
shots.
no,
Make sure
they
you
had everything all set. I mean, they checked
like out.
your
Okay.
financials, your shots.
Yeah.
everything. But it's one of those things where the pandemic really made me realize that you have to care about yourself and your family
Yeah.
because nobody else gives a damn, or very few people give a damn. Let me put it that way. And we have become somewhat reclusive. I mean, we measure how we go out. Um, Tron works at a senior community chef there, so he's got to be careful. I have to be careful because my asthma and COPD. So we still do the dreaded mask thing, and we've got all our fun furry masks that we wear with animals on them. But we've changed how and what we do and what we do. And, we've got our favorite little restaurants. We don't really do the big things. About the most crowded thing we do is we have our season passes for Six Flags, but
Hmm.
that's outside. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you're right. It has changed a lot of things, and I think it has made a lot of people take a step back and think about things. And I also know that like whatever I say isn't going to change people's mind. I'm not going to exude a whole lot of effort trying to convince someone who's anti-vax to not be vaccinated, and I'm not going to and I don't feel that strongly about it enough to try to convince the masses that because there could be there's a lot of conspiracy theories about things being like experimental and microchips and all this stuff, but it's like I don't have time for conspiracies really. It may be fun to hear about them every once in a while, kind of in a weird sense, but like I don't have time for that. Like I'm gonna like you said, I'm gonna do what I think is best for me and my family, and
yeah,
and if people and I'm gonna I care about my friends and the close circle that I got, and I'll say what I think here and there. But if someone is really adamant about what they believe, I'm not going to try to change their mind. I'm not going to be Alex Jones, and tell people you gotta, do this or whatever, and everybody's out. I don't want to spend my life so paranoid about chemtrails and all this other stuff that might be happening in the world. That there is a possibility it could be happening, but I'd rather spend my time watching a show like Ancient Aliens and thinking, well, aliens could be possible. It could be possible that, but I'm not watching it in a serious manner where I'm like so spun up about it and serious that, you know, I believe everything these people are saying because I will question everything, and that's just part of me being me and questioning things in my reality, and trying to do the best I can. The, I, I think I have realized lately that it's like the one thing that we can do is like you said, a lot of people don't care about, there's some people that care, but the majority of people don't care. And we live in this world where everything's kind of closed off, like I haven't left the house. I leave the house like a couple times a week to run down to the local store or hardware store or whatever in a small town, but I don't go out to do anything. And like you said, I might go grab some fast food here and there,
yeah,
and it's like, but I'm not going out and doing a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But that's just me. If other people want to do that, I have a niece who likes to go to raves, and that's her thing. And it's like, and that's what makes her feel the most alive. And it's like, it sucks when you can't do that if you're on a mandatory lockdown type thing. But as soon as it opens back up, she's excited to get back out there, because she wants to dance and have fun and be with her friends. And it's like, yeah, I know, I get it, like, and I'm not going to tell her not to go, and she's already had COVID and stuff. And, but it's just, I don't know. There's just, it's a lot of stuff when we could, beat that horse to till the sun
well,
comes up.
as far as aliens, they lock their doors when they go past Earth.
I've seen that meme. I'm like, oh yeah, that's I'm on the last season of X Files. Like I had to I haven't seen the more recent seasons or the last two seasons that came out like in 2016 or something. But my wife hadn't seen the original much. She's seen a few episodes here and there. So like we started watching that a couple years ago. Man, there's a lot of episodes. So it's a and a lot of them I remembered almost like verbatim. And then there's other ones I'm like I don't remember this happening back then. And it's just it's fun. I love that stuff. I love talking about space and aliens and the possibilities. It's cool and it's fun. That's why I like all the like sci-fi stuff too. I'm so into
Yeah.
like Star Trek and all that.
My office
Watching.
at the at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base was catty corner from the Project Blue Book office.
Oh wow. They talk about that a lot. They mention Wright-Patterson too, because a lot of, I think it was in 1947, the Roswell crash, like
Yep.
they had transported a lot of stuff to two different places. One to Fort Worth, Texas, which was the base that I used to be stationed at in the Marines, and then the rest up to Wright-Pat and
Hmm.
it's Ohio, right? Is that
Yep. Dayton,
yeah,
Ohio.
yeah, Dayton, Ohio. And I've driven through there a few times. Never been to that. I was doing work with the company I was working for on a program that was working on like a helmet for pilots where they could. It was a joint helmet mounted cueing system, so you can like basically look at your target while you're flying the jet and
Oh
lock
wow.
on. So like they were doing this kind of stuff, and I used to work on that helmet. And one of the production guys, or his main base that he came out of was Wright Pat, but he was a contractor. But I met him a couple times on a few different trips. I think I was like in Mountain Home, uh, what is that? Idaho, and then in Okinawa, Japan. I went there, and that guy was funny. But yeah, he was out of Right Pat.
There's a lot of stuff we don't have the comprehension for understanding. Because, I mean, God knows we cannot be the most intelligent life in all the universes.
That's what I think. And I don't even think we know like uh really what I mean. Obviously, we don't know everything about our own universe, but it's like when you get into like when you're watching all this sci-fi stuff or the Marvel stuff with the multiverses, it's like there's probably not even just one universe. This is just the universe we know about it, which is in a small bubble compared to how many other actual different universes there are. There could be other me's in these other parallel dimensions or whatever, like doing
All.
God knows what. And it's awesome to think about.
Well, just look at it this way. There have been more people on the moon that have been to the bottom of the ocean.
True. Yeah. And it's crazy to think about because the moon is so far away and the ocean's right here, but it's also really far away to the deepest, like,
Yeah.
the bottom trenches. And we don't have really devices, I don't think, that can go that deep with humans, like be able to sustain the pressure and stuff. That's like, I don't know.
Well, I mean,
It's cool. It's cool stuff to think about.
you have to look at the whole thing. I mean, our life form. Some of the vents in the deep trenches, there are volcanic vents where are burping out pure cyanide, and there's life around them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's just so much we don't even understand about our own world.
That's very true. Very true. Well, I'm watching the clock here. How about we take a quick break
Okay.
and then we will come back and dig dig a bit more into some other stuff, possibly, or some of the same stuff. We'll see. It's all. We'll see how it goes. Everybody, hang in there and don't touch that dial. Okay, we are back. Thank you, folks, for listening in to the Wormhole Manifest podcast. I'm here still. I'm here still with my friend Chris, or Tiger, or Papa Woof, my furry friend from the old hometown. And we were kicking it the first half of this, and of course I was rambling as I do, and talking about all the stuff that we talked about. Um, where do we go from here? That's always where I'm wondering, and a lot of times I try to have a planned topic and stuff. I think we were talking about. I was mentioning the mental health theme of the show, but but yeah, there's just there's so many variations of things in the whole mental health spectrum of the world and our society. So I think that's something that I get on tangents about, because it's like I try to look at, like, how did we end up here? Like, how did we end up in such a world where there's so many issues? We have all these mental issues, or even as they're like more things are discovered, there's all these different things with people on the spectrum. There's different uh, types of autism, and all that. My son was diagnosed. My oldest son was diagnosed a long time ago, and they said it was Asperger's. But now I've heard that that's not what they want to be called, people that are were diagnosed,
Yeah.
because that was like a Nazi type thing. So it's like, I was like, oh, there was a Nazi doctor that came up with that. But it's like, even if somebody who's kind of in on that spectrum, it's like, um, they're all completely different. Like, there's no one person is alike, and that's what I think makes the world great anyway. Is that we have so many different things that we can always be learning something new from people,
And that's
from every other
important.
person.
You have to keep learning and being
Yeah,
open-minded enough to learn.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's where people run into issues, is they decide that they have learned all they want to learn, or they've grown all they want to grow, or they decide that you know this is just who I am. And in a way, that kind of thinking or that mentality is kind of a toxic trait, in a way, because you're just saying, this is who I am, this is how I am. Like, you've already decided you're not willing to change. And some people will say, well, why should I change? Like, why would I want to change? I like who I am. And it's like, that's fine. You can like who you are, but you can also like to keep growing and learning and evolving ultimately. Like, when are all of us as a human race going to evolve to a next level,
Yeah.
to like a higher plane, a more like the Buddhist monks are, their teachings are about, like, paths, the different paths to enlightenment and things like that. So I think it's all really cool and interesting stuff to learn about, and it's a good mantra of mine, is to know that I don't know
Yeah.
everything. I don't, and I will always want to keep learning. And um, so yeah, that's true. Um,
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about my past. I was
okay, yeah.
diagnosed first grade with hyperactivity disorder at that point in time, which is now, I think it qualifies as ADHD. And um, I went to a Catholic elementary school for 8 years. That learning was very cookie cutter. There was no type of tutoring or anything like that. It was, you were given what you were given, and you had to conform to that. Third grade, the school counselor told my parents that I would be lucky to be able to hold a job down at McDonald's. And when I went to high school, I went to Kaiser High School in Dayton, and had some wonderful instructors. I actually went into horticulture.
real quick, and a quick interruption. The when you mentioned that person saying, I just want to point this out because it's something I've learned recently. That person is saying that you would be lucky to hold down a job at McDonald's. That's that's exactly like something that I would have said um, to other in a different situation.
Mhm.
But that's another toxic thing that I want to point out because it's not fucking easy to work at McDonald's.
No.
You know, fast food is very demanding,
Yeah.
and those people deserve as much love and respect as anybody in any job field. Like even so it's like just wanted to
Yeah.
throw that in there because it's something I learned. My wife had pointed it out. I used to drive to the drive-through, and when I placed my order, they would say like drive to the next window and to pay or whatever, and I would just drive. She's like, you don't say thank you, like, and I'm like, who am I saying thank you to? Like the speaker? Like, because I wasn't considering the fact that there's a person
Right.
on the other side of that speaker who's taking my order. And that's all part of being aware that there are people out there and that person just took my order. And who knows, maybe a quick little thank you could change the way that person, maybe they're having a bad day or something, so taking everything into consideration.
Yeah.
But okay, go keep going on with the
Well, my high school was a vocational high school. So, I mean, we had auto shop and welding and all that kind of stuff. And I went into horticulture. And I had some absolute amazing instructors that really challenged me. They figured out the best things to put me on to really learn. By my senior year in high school, I was president of our FFA chapter. I had won the Dayton Wall Street Award for Junior Businessmen. And my graduating year, I was actually inducted into the American Academy of Achievement, and I graduated in the top 100 students in the nation.
wow.
Just by having instructors that didn't say, okay, here is how you have to learn.
Hmm. That's
Because, I mean, I'm sure with you, there's ways that you will pick up stuff easier than other people will.
yeah, yeah.
It's just like me. You
It's
sit me down with a math book. You might as well give me a book in some alien language, but get me in the kitchen. I can break down a recipe and cook a batch of food that will feed anywhere from 1 to 100 just by calculating things in my head.
hmm. Yeah, and that's a very good point too, because like there is really no one set way of learning or knowing how to do particular things. In one of my last official role in the military, I was um I packed parachutes, and when you pack parachutes that go into like ejection seats and also the back style parachutes for the training aircraft, like this is a life-saving device. Like it has got to be right 100% because if some in-flight emergency happens and that pilot needs to punch out, like they don't want to have in the back of their mind thinking that there's a bunch of goofy guys working down in the parachute shop fucking around and doing whatever, and like so like they don't want to have to second guess that, and they don't ever second guess that because they know that those people are put in those jobs, because they're competent and they can pack the chutes and they get it done right. And everything is like two sets of eyes. You have a quality assurance person who's like making sure everything's correct and by the book, step by step, all that. And it's a lot of pressure actually. Like when you're in that role of the person, either or, if you're the person packing, doing the physical work, doing all the stuff, tying the knots, making sure everything is done just right. And then even the person who's looking after everything and signing off saying that this person did it right. the second set of eyes. It's like I was in both of those roles at different times. And I can say that, like, at finally at one point I had to like go to my commander with all the other issues I was having in my life. My own personal life was having a lot of things going on where I couldn't keep up, and I didn't feel right. Like, my integrity, I guess, came out and said, like, I cannot keep working. Like, I can't keep doing this job because something's going to get fucked up and it's going to come back on me, and I'm going to feel even worse than I feel now just thinking about it, like. And so it's, you know and luckily enough, the person that I was talking to and telling them that, they were like, okay, you're doing the right thing, and they reassured me that I was doing the right thing because I spoke up, and it's like, a lot of people don't, though, and that's what's scary. There's people out there in different similar types of jobs that are where people's lives are on the line, and they're afraid to speak up,
Well,
and it's like, oh my.
it's like we talked about earlier, having people around you that are open-minded enough and willing to listen
Yeah.
and learn.
Yeah. So, like, with the school thing, did you say it was Catholic all the way up
To 8th grade.
to high school? Oh,
And then I went
because
to
like
public high school.
was that all in? Are you from that area,
Dayton, yeah.
St. Louis? I
I
forgot.
spent summers here in St. Louis as a kid. It's one of the reasons I ended
Hmm.
up back here, because I loved it here so much. But yeah, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
It's a great place to grow
Yeah.
up. I wouldn't want to live there.
I think in the last episode we were talking about Midwest, and my friend is originally from, or was born in, Indiana, and she's like, you don't want to go there. She's like, I think I'm from there, so I think I could say that. I'm like, well, there's a lot of good places everywhere you go. I mean, there's, but it's just where you choose
Yeah.
to be.
See, I love it here because of the great history.
Yeah, gateway to the West.
The ghost history. I mean, of course, I'm sure you know this. St. Alexian Hospital, right here in St. Louis, was
Oh
the
man,
actual home of the exorcism that the movie The Exorcist is based off of.
based on, yep. See, and on that note, like, stemming from something that is childhood based trauma related, like, I remember reading the newspaper clippings about when that event happened. And I read that when I was a little bit older, maybe like around 11 or 12, old enough to understand that. And my older, I come from a big family. I have 4 older brothers and two older sisters. I'm the youngest. So, and there's the next up in line, my next brother is about 10 years older than me. So there was a huge gap. I grew up basically like an only child, except I had all these adults around me all the time, because of that huge age gap.
Kind of like
and,
us.
and
There's 5 of us, and there's 6 years between each of us.
Oh, wow. Yeah. So, like, my brothers thought it was a good idea one time, because my oldest brother was living in a trailer community south of St. Louis, and my dad and one of my other brothers and me went down there to visit him on like a weekend or something. And I guess they would hang out and play cards. It was part of like my dad thinking he's being a good dad by hanging out with his older, almost, pretty much adult kids, and, drinking beer and playing cards, and there was a video rental store down the road. And so my other brother went down and they rented The Evil Dead and The Exorcist. And then they came back. And so I'm a kid. I'm sitting there playing with He-Man toys on the floor because I'm like 6, and they pop in The Evil Dead. And I started watching it, and I was okay for a little while. And I was okay. But then a lot of weird shit started happening. And then I was like, not okay. I'm like, this is really freaking me out, like. And if anybody knows about those movies, it's like The Evil Dead's a great film. It's like hilarious, really. The part two is even better. Bruce
Yeah.
Campbell is like my idol. Like, I love that guy. He's just amazing. All the stuff I have, like all the videos he's been in, and he's just a great actor and a great person. I've met him twice in real life, and he's awesome. So shout out Bruce Campbell, love you, man. But anyway, when I was 6 years old, it was a different story. I had no idea who he was, and I didn't know what this movie was we were watching. So they finished that movie. By the time they finished it, I was sitting on the couch and I had a blanket over my head. And then they popped in The Exorcist, and oh my God, talk about like where a lot of stuff stems from in my system and with trauma and all that. And I didn't even realize it until much later in my life that like I've tried telling my kids about it and how I don't want to show them scary stuff because of what happened to me. But like, kids are different now. like, but back then, when I started getting into my early 20s, I'd be like flipping through a magazine. If I saw a picture of that girl's face, the one who was possessed in The Exorcist, like there was one time I was in like a 7-Eleven flipping through a magazine and it had a huge picture of that girl's face, and my bodily reaction and mental like something caused me to throw the magazine onto the floor. Like I went into this weird shock panic type thing, and it haunted me for a very long time. It really did. And I even watched the movie again later. I mean, of course I was drinking, and I was like, why did this bother me so much? And it wasn't the movie that bothered me, but it was the thoughts and the memories in my own head that I had built up around the experience that I had when I was in that trailer. And also because I had read the newspaper clippings about the real event that had taken place literally down the street, like from where you are, where I grew up and all that. So it didn't help at all that my mom, devout Christian, was constantly telling me that if I don't do the right thing, I'm going to go to hell. So I was always afraid as a little kid that I was going to get possessed by a demon and my head was going to spin around, like fucking trauma, man. Like that's why I'm not quite atheist now, but I don't subscribe to any known religions. But yeah, that's just here. There I go on another tangent. But yeah, that when you said that, it flashbacks almost immediately. Like thinking about that Alexian Brothers Hospital.
Uh-huh.
I remember the newspaper clippings when they talked about that. I went to the library and had to look them up, and it was like shit. And then they did a reprint, and they said if you want to find out about the original story, you can go find old newspaper clippings at your local library. And I'm like, oh wow, that's cool.
Actually,
because I wanted to know if it actually happened.
Yeah.
Like, did it really happen? Was there a girl or, but it turned out it was a boy in real life, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, St. Louis University has a whole section on their website with the original story because the last priest died 6-8 years ago. So they've been able to open everything now because it was sealed until after the last priest involved died. But also, since you're a beer drinker, you might like this. Down in Benton Park, they actually just found one of the underground breweries that was in that completely down into the cave, and they had their brew hall in one of the big cave rooms, and you would leave by taking a hot air balloon to the surface.
What?
But
what? Wow.
When they had the Great Fire here, it was lost where this was because it was post-Prohibition. And the location of this cave had been lost for years and years. And they just last year finally discovered where it was again.
Oh, wow. I do remember some stories my dad would be telling me about that St. Louis, there's a lot of like underground, like abandoned underground, not just like tunnels that are man-made, but a lot of caverns and things. And there's like every once in a while you would see something on the news or whatever about like a sinkhole with just like because one of those caverns obviously had collapsed. So
Right.
like people's houses and stuff would be like, because you didn't know because they're pretty deep down,
Yeah.
but it's a huge open cavern
Well,
in some of these areas. And some places are more closer to the surface as well. But
some of the Metrolink, you know how Metrolink goes underground downtown?
yeah, yeah.
Those are actually going through some of the caves.
Oh wow.
The Lemp Brewery and Anheuser-Busch still use the caves for lagering beer.
Oh man.
There's actually, um, I've been lucky enough to go down to the Lemp Cave several times. There's actually 5 levels down, and I mean
Oh
these
wow.
are natural rooms that are football field size.
What? Wow.
Well, when the Lemp family, which of course is just right down the street too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and for listeners, for people that are listening, if you do some research about St. Louis, Missouri, the Lemp Brewery and the Lemp Mansion, there was I guess the family was the Lemp family, right? And they started the brewery,
yeah.
and it was before even Anheuser Busch, right?
Well,
Like before,
they were
or
they
was it
were
around the same time?
they were direct competitors, but
Okay,
when Prohibition hit, Anheuser-Busch started a soft drink line, Bevo, and they also
yeah,
sold the brewing yeast as baking yeast. So that allowed Anheuser-Busch to survive during Prohibition. The Lemp family was not as savvy to do that.
ah,
But during the
and
Lemp's heyday, they had the caves that went from the mansion to the brewery, so they never had to go outside. They had the water that would be heated from the brewing process. They had one of the caves that had been hollowed out and turned into an underground heated swimming pool. They had another one made into a theater where they would, bring circus troops underground to do these, performances in this show cave.
oh
Um,
wow.
actually, I-55 runs right over, if you go down Broadway, right where 55 crosses, that's where Cherokee Cave was, which is like
Hmm.
Merrimack Caverns. And
Hmm.
when 55 was put in, not only did they bury the cave, which you can still get into the back way through underground from the Lemp Brewery, but they also tore out a series of Indian mounds.
Oh.
And there's one house that's there along 55 that's set on a hill all by itself. I don't know if you remember that one or not, right there by the Broadway exit.
I
Um,
think so.
that
Yeah.
is actually built on an Indian mound.
Oh, is that the Lemp Mansion,
No, the Lemp
or is it
Mansion is right next door to the Lemp Brewery.
the brewery? Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I used to when I worked up I when I was there and I started working at Boeing, I used to drive down 70 to 55, and I always drove past. And every time for some weird reason, whenever I passed the Lemp Mansion, I my eyes always got drawn to the top windows
Uh huh.
in the attic, because everybody that is from the area knows that the place is haunted.
Oh yeah.
So it's like I was always trying to, like, I wasn't trying. It was like a natural thing. I'm driving my car, listening to the radio or whatever, and then I'm like, oh, Lemp Mansion. Look at the top windows, see if I see anything creepy. Like I was just trying to see if, and the few times I went there, because they do, like, it's a restaurant
Yeah.
too. Like you can go there and have dinner, but you can also do. They had those like dinner theater
Yep.
party type things, which are amazing. Like they're really fun. Um, so I went to a couple of those. Whenever I'm in there, it feels weird. The atmosphere changes when you enter that place, and it's I don't know. It's almost like I want to think, like, is this like a placebo thing because I've heard all the stories, or is it like really changing? Like, because, and then I'm always looking for things, and then I haven't been there since I've had a decent cell phone to like snap pictures to see if I can, because I've seen pictures people have taken random pictures, like whether they're like Polaroids or whatever, and there's like orbs and all this stuff, so it's like it's really cool. the one time I was in there, I kind of wandered off, and I was still on the first floor, but I went and got a beer, and I was standing by the staircase. I think there's a couple
Uh-huh.
staircases, but there's one towards the middle back of the building
Yeah.
that goes up pretty far.
Right.
And I was just standing there looking straight up, and I was looking at the railings and admiring the architecture and whatnot. And then all of a sudden I saw a hand come over the top railing on the very top. And then I was like, it freaked me out, but they were having a tour and they had people up there. They've had like shows of ghost hunters and things like that where
Yeah.
they've been up in the top floor and they've had done recordings, and I've heard like there's like voices and things that they've captured on audio and all kinds of weird stuff. But
Well,
like,
they just had a crew in there a couple years ago. Were just getting shots. They hadn't encountered everything. They got home, and when they were taking a look at the pictures, the main stairwell, right as you come in the front door, the lady in white was at the top of the steps.
oh wow,
But yeah, they actually do a Sunday family dinner there that's amazing now, all you can eat.
yeah. I mean, St. Louis in general has a lot of good food. I mean, there's
Oh,
just a
yeah.
that's one of the staples I think of the town. And I briefly mentioned I am heading over there next month. A little reunion thing for there's a band playing that got back together after not playing for 15 or so years or something like that, and a bunch of my friends were really into them as well, and so meeting up. Hopefully, I get to meet up with you when I go there.
Yeah.
Whether it's something, just meet up for a few minutes, have a coffee or something. I think it'd be pretty cool. It's been way too long, but there's so much history in that town, and like you said, with the tunnels or with the caves, it's like. Missouri in itself is kind of it's a cave state, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I grew up. My dad was really into exploring caves, and so we used to go down to not just everybody knows about Merrimack Caverns because of the whole Jesse James thing and that history stuff. Um, they also know about Mark Twain Cave from Tom Sawyer and
Your
Tom Sawyer, Becky Thatcher, and
Onondaga and
yeah, all these there's just all these huge caves that were written about by these early authors. But my dad was like big into going to just Merrimack State Park, which is a little bit more
yeah.
south of Merrimack Caverns, and there's a lot of caves that are just open.
Uh-huh.
If you have to find them, because there's trails everywhere, and there's the main places where you can camp and do regular state park activities. But if you get deep enough in the woods and some of those places along the river in those bluffs, there's some caves they go back maybe 20 feet,
Yeah.
and it's just nothing else there. But like there's some caves, like we spent a lot of time in the Bear Cave, which was just a big massive opening in the side of the mountain there, or the hill, and it goes back quite a ways. And then there's several other ones that go back quite a ways that are a little more, you kind of have to be knowledgeable in the realm of spelunking
Yeah.
to get in there. So like that was one of my fond memories, and I'll give my dad a shout out because he's not here. But one of the things I loved about going to Merrimack State Park was just exploring caves, and a lot of people are scared of them and stuff, but it's not. Like, my dad made it so fun because he's like, "Ooh, we might see some bats," and it's like most people would get freaked out because, but they're just little brown, cute, fuzzy little bats,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, cool. And then, or we could see a salamander, and we did. We went in there, we see these little cute little lizards, and it's like, we just sit there, and he's like, don't touch them, just leave them alone, and just
Yeah.
admire the beauty of them. And it's like, that's my dad in a nutshell, was like admiring the nature of, what is around, and the creatures that inhabit those places. And, you know, and then as I got older, I would go with my friends to those places and like do more exploring, like to where we're almost like getting stuck. It's like, it's like, okay, we need to like, let's knock it off, before we do something harmful. But yeah, like people are scared of that stuff. And I think it's awesome. I love caves, but there's some things. If it has like water, water is a big thing, a no for me. Like I was afraid in the Marine Corps I was going to get stationed on a carrier, and I was like I don't. And then when I found out I was going to be working on a C-130, I was like, oh yeah, those things never go on carriers. I'm like I'll be land. I'm like I'll be safe on land. I don't have to go out on the ocean because I don't like big open water either. But underground open water, no, nope, can't do it. That's a big nope. Yeah, anybody listening to this show, if you ever get to the St. Louis area, I would suggest check out at least the history, learn a little bit about some of the things like the Lemp Brewery, Lemp Mansion, obviously Anheuser-Busch, but the Budweiser and King of Beers and all that stuff.
Up world.
But there's a lot of good like craft breweries and stuff too. I remember when Schlafly, first came in, like it was like the early '90s, I think, wasn't it? Like,
Yeah,
and it was like
first post-prohibition brewery to open in St. Louis. But now on Manchester, right between Kings Highway and Banaventer, there's 2 or 3 breweries. There's a couple micro distilleries, and just all kinds of stuff.
Oh wow, yeah, and then of course there's Forest Park. I lived right near there too. Before you knew me from the convention stuff, I was living in the Central West End, and I was working in right by Clayton. So I didn't have a car, so I was taking the bus every day. I tell my wife stories about me waiting for the bus, and like I used to get so pissed off because like the weather was bad, and like you had to stand out there for fucking ever waiting for a bus, and then I had to transfer like 3 times to get from where I lived to get to work. So I'm out there like 5 o'clock in the morning because I got to be at work by like 7:30. And I'm like, shit, it's taking me freaking ever. But I read a lot. I brought books and I read a lot. But like sometimes I would get on a bus and it would be late. The bus was late. So then it would get to my next transfer late, and I would see my other bus I had to get on, and it was pouring down rain outside. So I'm like, come on, I gotta get that bus up there. I'm like yelling at the driver, and I'm like, and then I jump out the door and I fall down into like the gutter, and I get soaking wet, and then I'm getting up trying to run, and I still miss the next fucking bus, and I'm like, this is my life, like, and I'm like, so you either wait there for the next 20, 30 minutes for the next bus, and by then I'd be late for work, or I walk the next another like 3 miles to get to work, and I could probably get there on time if I hustle, but I'm soaking wet and it's still pouring down rain. And one of my friends, my good friend Vince, who I named my son after. My son's name is Logan. His middle name's Vincent. My friend Vince, I lost quite a while. He had diabetes, and that unfortunately took his life. But he used to look at me with the funniest look, and he'd be like, "Why don't you like public transportation? What is your problem?" And I'm like, it's not that I don't like public transportation. It's like, I don't like the situations I get into when I'm trying to catch a bus and I fall down in the gutter in the rain. I said, that kind of shit would piss anybody off. And he's like, yeah, you're right.
Nothing worse than being pissed and moist in the morning.
It's like, yeah, like it's like just after 6 a.m. And I'm like, why?
You're already done for the day.
I'm just trying to go to work, man. It's not the bus's fault, but I mean, it was.
Yeah.
They were late. If they weren't late, I would have made it on time and got my transfer and got on the next bus and made it to work on time. But it's hilarious, though. Looking back on that stuff.
It's such history. The farmers market's been going since 1782.
Oh, yeah. That's Soulard, right?
Yeah. And
yeah.
You haven't been back since they redid the Arch grounds, have you?
Kind of, but not really. Like I haven't been, like you mean the whole Laclede's Landing type thing?
Well,
I know they did a bunch of stuff down there.
They You know how the Arch
You mean
Park was, where you'd go down the sides underneath the arch and everything.
yeah, and there's the museum and stuff under
Well,
there.
they completely redid it. Now the entrance to the arch is facing downtown. They actually covered I-70 with a greenway. So you can
Oh,
actually walk from the arch clear down the center of downtown.
like down to like the old courthouse and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah,
Like right because I know that was right in line
right.
with alignment with it. Yeah, I mean, I used to skateboard and stuff a lot. I would go down there. I actually skated on the arch. Like I say that, but I just did kind of like a little wall ride, like real quick,
Uh-huh.
just popped up on the side, almost like maybe 2 feet off the ground. But like I was like, yeah, wall ride. I skated on the arch. People think I'm on top of the arch, like gonna skate down it. No, you would die.
Yeah,
You would definitely die. That one pair that base jumper guy got up and jumped off that one time.
and got in all kinds of trouble.
Yeah. I think he was going around to all kinds of different monuments and things like that, trying to break world records, I imagine.
Yeah.
Probably like a Guinness
And you know
type
about
thing. But
the Gateway Geyser?
the geyser?
Right across the river from the arch over in Illinois. There
Oh, yeah.
is there is a park. There is a fountain in that park.
I've
It's
seen
just,
water shooting
yeah,
up, but I never really knew what it
that's the
was.
Gateway Geyser.
Huh.
There's a beautiful little park over there with an observation deck now and everything.
I used to not go over on that side too much. I did for a short period of time live on the east side. I lived in like if you go across that bridge there, that's south of the arch, and then you go and if you make the first exit right, you can head into Cahokia,
Yeah.
past Monsanto and stuff like that down Route 3. Like I used to live in Cahokia, and I lived over there when I was still going to college. Um, and I
It's
used to
not
drive.
Cahokia anymore.
Oh, it's not.
They've combined all the little cities. It's now Cahokia Heights.
Oh, wow. I'd be surprised if the building that I lived in, the little weird house that I lived in with my roommate, I'd be surprised if it's even there anymore. It was kind of a shithole, but it was a party house. It was. I mean, that place was crazy.
Actually,
There was.
there's one of our. You remember the little campgrounds that was over there, right on Route 3 in Cahokia?
I think so. Yeah.
They actually have an amazing barbecue there now, called Sawmill Barbecue.
Oh wow.
And my favorite dispensary's over there too. So
Yes, it's like finally Missouri is coming around to and I remember this is another thing I want to make sure I put out on all my episodes if I think about it, is that people need to vote. Like if you get out there and vote, if you don't like the way shit's going and you don't participate, you're part of the problem. Like and now I'm glad because I've known that it's been legalized in Illinois for a while, and I think recreational as well.
yeah,
But in Missouri for the longest time, they had finally passed the medical use.
recreation just
Um,
started about a month ago.
and yeah, and I remember that being on one of the last bills or one of the last things that was to be voted on. And I remember going in there and I'm like, I read up about it. I'm like, okay, gotta go vote. So get out there and vote in your local communities. In your local communities first and foremost, but for the rest of your city or state, at least read the stuff and the stuff is worded terribly a lot of times when you're reading this and it makes no freaking sense. So at least like do some research and try to look up what does this mean? What are they trying to do? Because I live closer to Kansas City now, so there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, I have no idea like what is going on in the city. But thanks to another friend of mine who does a podcast about laws, it's like I get to learn about how a lot of things work in not just in our entire country, basically like covers a lot of things, but like a lot of places and different cities and towns, things are really quirky and you have to pay attention, like you have to kind of look into this stuff if you want to affect any type of change for the future or for future generations, or and all that. So that's got to make that point. But
But yeah, I mean,
yeah, I'm interested to come visit St. Louis again here pretty soon because I know a lot has changed
yeah.
since I've been there, since I've lived there, definitely. But
And if you're
the past few times I've come to visit, I was only there for a short period of time, and I maybe ate at a restaurant that I liked a
yeah,
long time ago, and drove around a little bit, but and spotted a bunch of different things. But it's very weird to me now. It's a very weird sensation I get going back to my old hometown where I grew up, and it's almost like unrecognizable.
yeah,
Of course, you can't miss the arch. That thing's freaking huge. It's
yeah. Well, of course, you know where the botanical garden is. There's the row houses that were right there along I-44, kind of in front of where the botanical garden
okay.
is. They were tearing a bunch of those down because they become really dilapidated. They actually had to stop demolition because they were discovering huge caches of underground railroad memorabilia.
Oh, wow.
And talking about the caves, the Underground Railroad actually used the caves.
Uh, That's really interesting. And then, of course, it reminds me of something else. When I was a kid and I used to hear about the Underground Railroad, I, I thought it was literally an underground, like, I thought there was a train that was underground that nobody knew about except for the slaves that were trying to escape. And I never put it together until like, I, I'll go ahead and admit it. It was way way later in my life than it should have been. Like I was imagining like a subway. I'm like, like they had like how did the slaves make a subway? Like they had like no tools. Like what? How did they do this? That was amazing to escape. But it's like anything that's underground. It's not technically underground.
Yeah,
People, don't be like me, a dumb white kid who's just like pay attention in school,
yeah,
my friends. Oh man, but that stuff's really interesting. The people out there listening to the show, if you don't know anything about Midwest and things, there's just a lot of history, and it's like especially if you are from the West, I would say. Um, Learn about stuff that's more east of you because it happened first. Like
yeah,
you wouldn't exist if the stuff didn't go from there to there. Like it moved from. I used to think north and south was east and west as a kid.
Well, the cool thing about St. Louis is like the zoo and the public museums are all free.
Yeah, yeah. That is a good point, and it's that's a cool thing about that because I used to want to be an artist. When I was in college, I took all art classes, and I would go hang out at the art museum all the time, and there's a lot of cool stuff. Last time I was there, I took my wife there for a little bit, and it's just it's. I think they had some Egyptian stuff last time we went, and that was really cool. So something that's free. There's a lot of stuff that's free that doesn't cost a lot, and you can still get a lot out of it,
Yeah,
um, which is really important
you need
because
to
not a
put
lot of
a
people can
photo up to
afford
the
to.
city museum.
Oh yeah, City Museum. We went there too. We went there years ago though.
It's
I don't think we
you
went
would
last
you would
time.
not even recognize it now because they now have a Ferris wheel and water park on the roof. They
Damn.
have a rebar jungle gym that is as tall as the building on the outside called Monstro City.
Oh wow.
They just got one of the swinging ship rides from Palisades Park. There are, I think it's 10-story spiral slide in there now that goes all the way from the top to the bottom.
Man.
The hand cast limestone caves with a mighty Wurlitzer organ in the middle of them.
Jeez. Yeah. My the last time because obviously my ex is from there, her and she grew up there too, and her family is there, so my kids who live with my ex about a block away from me where I live now, um, they go to St. Louis like a lot more often than I do. So when I talk to my kids after they've been there, they'll tell me about just catching up, telling me about the things they did while they were visiting grandma and grandpa, um, on my ex's side, because my parents are passed, but like they'll tell me about like all the things they did in town, and I think the last time they went to City Museum, and they said that they were they got in trouble, you know, because they were like my oldest and I think my oldest and like one of his siblings, because my ex has other kids, and they like wandered off or something, and so then my middle son and my daughter were spent the entire rest of the time basically not having fun and enjoying all the stuff
Uh,
because they were too busy looking for the oldest and the youngest siblings. So it's like, I'm like, why didn't you just say screw them and go off and do your own thing and like enjoy everything? And then when it's time to meet up or whatever, and they're like, well, we didn't even have our phones because mom made us keep them in the car. I was like, well, that was dumb. Like, like I would have told you, make sure you have your phone, or a watch at least to know what time it is, and then every hour check in at a certain point at the place, you know, like at the little cafe or wherever, you know, at the place, check in. I will meet you here every hour on the hour, you know, or something.
yeah.
I'm like, come on, you know, you got to plan shit out. You got to work it out. Don't like, I'm ADHD and I know this, you know, like I'm like, I see something and I'm like, oh, that looks cool, you know, and then like everything else becomes a second thought. But like, at least I know how to like write stuff down and make a list and plan and, you know, say this is what we need to do just in case this happens. But that might be the military training in me, you know. It's like be prepared for the worst, you know. So it's like, because shit, just when you least expect it, shit can happen, and it's like you don't want to be on the wrong side when things happen. Like,
Yeah.
you know, so but yeah, they tell me about their little excursions and stuff, and I'm like, that's cool. At least you're out there being kids and all that. My son, I was telling you earlier, my son just got back from DC. He's in this group at high school. He's a freshman this year, first year high school, and he's in this thing called Cyber Patriots, which is a um, it's basically like a cyber security team, but it's part of the junior ROTC or
Cool. Yeah.
JROTC at the school. Um, his first year in this little course thing or little group, they won the in the nationals or whatever, and was able to go to DC to compete in the finals. There's like 2,000 of these groups across the nation,
Oh wow.
and they were one of the 12 teams out of the entire country that got to go. Now, you know, and they got 10th place at the final results, but it's still freaking awesome
It's still
that
really good at that number of teams.
got to go, because that percentage, that still means that they are like 0.053% in the entire country,
Yeah.
you know, like in this team. And so he got back today and was telling me about it and catching up about it. And, you know, he said he walked over 20 miles while he was there, because
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, the Smithsonian and all that stuff is like, you have to, like, you got to go see all as much as you can. And so he was just catching up, and it was really cool. He's only 14. He's going to be 15 here in a couple weeks, but you know, I thought that was really awesome. So,
You're so
I'm really proud of him.
old.
What?
You're so old.
I know, damn it. But yeah, that's cool that he's into that stuff, because I don't know jack shit about coding or any of that. I know enough. I mean, I own a computer repair business, but I do mostly hardware and like Windows install and updates and upgrades and,
That's
you know,
me.
swapping
Yeah, I
out.
can't code, but I can fix stuff.
Yeah, I can troubleshoot, you know, like I can troubleshoot like why you don't have sound, you know, like why a driver is, or why a device isn't working, you know, like before we started recording today, my webcam wasn't working. So I'm like, I unplugged it and plugged it back into different USB ports until it started working. Because the first time I did it, it didn't work. Then the second time I did it, it didn't work. Third time's a charm. It's like, hey, look, I got a webcam.
Did you
But yeah, that's awesome. He's
turn it
getting into
back
that
on
stuff.
again?
Huh?
Did you turn it off and turn it back on again?
I tried showing my kids that show, and my son loves it. He thinks it's hilarious, but like, it's way different than his realm of, because he's actually in there. He knows how to code.
Yeah.
He's like learning the languages and all this, and it's like, I love the show because it's just these characters and they're just being ridiculous. It's hilarious. Hey, so Tiger, do you want to? I know we need to wrap up. You got any like last words, insights, anything cool to tell the people out there? And then follow that up with like where to find you on social media if they want to, and stuff like that, or even shout outs to anybody in particular.
Keep living the dream. I mean, don't let anybody tell you can't do it. And you can always find me on Woof Night, WOOFKNIGHT on Twitter, Papa Wolf Roth on Facebook. You can find me around. We actually, if you're a horror movie fan, every Friday night we have the Flatbush Foot Brigade movie night.
Yeah, I
We
was
tweet
wondering about
along on
that.
Twitter. Friday night, 8 p.m. Central. We're actually doing starting to feature independent horror movie creators, and we've got the movie Torturer this week, and we've got the director and several of the cast actually joining us.
Oh wow!
Tweet along, and we've had that a couple times now. We get a lot of the big
Don't you?
names.
Haven't you done like the Shutter type things and stuff like that, or did
Yeah,
I see
we
that
do
somewhere
every
else?
Friday. We do watch along parties for the last drive-in with Joe Bob Briggs from the old Monster Vision days.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's got a really good show on Shutter. And Shutter, if you like horror movies, it's $5 a month.
Yeah, that's a good deal.
But yeah, this was a lot of fun.
I think I've seen you tweet about that here and there, and there's been those times where I'm like, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do, and I try to do streaming on Twitch and stuff with gaming, but like sometimes I feel so out of the loop with everything. I'll play a game and it's like it has to really really grab my attention for me to take it past like
Yeah,
the tutorial basically. Like I feel like I'm not that kid playing the NES and beating Super Mario Brothers by running through every level as fast as I possibly can anymore. I can't do the speed run stuff. People do that all the time,
yeah,
and all these there's these kids now doing that with the old retro games that I played, and I'm like, how are you doing that? Like it was impossible for me as a kid. I'm like, that shit used to piss me off when I would die like every 5 seconds. I'm like, why can't I get past this guy? Like, come on. And these kids now are playing it and they're like flipping through like Rubik's cubes like super fast, and I'm like, I tried it, and I'm like, I did get okay at a Rubik's cube for a while because I forced myself to learn the algorithms on how to actually solve it. And then after I did that, and I figured like, my best time at solving it from start to finish was like 9 minutes. There's people that can do it in like 30 seconds.
yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm freaking done.
yeah.
Get the fuck out of here. I ain't even mess around with this shit. But no, it's a I saw you tweeting about the shutters and stuff, and I was like, man, it'd be cool to kind of hang out with some people, and
Well,
I need to do that kind of stuff more often because it's
we've got people that
being
are
cooped up sucks.
literally, I mean, we've got people from London, people from Canada, all over the United States. We started this back during COVID as just something to do, and it's now our Friday night escape for a couple hours. We have all kinds of movies where we help contribute to the horror 365 challenge. We're watching 365 horror movies this year, and
Wow.
we try to have a little bit of everything. We try to do it on like Tubi, if you're familiar with Tubi,
Yeah, yeah, Tubi.
which has an amazing horror library. Um, Shutter is the only one we really do that has a cost, which $5 a month.
How do you guys set it up to do like a virtual type thing? Because I know, like, I have had some friends, and I've actually ran an anime watch party through Discord a couple times, but like it's I don't want to sit at my computer desk, and I've actually recently ran a 20-foot cable from the back of my computer's video card over to my 70-inch TV because
Uh-huh.
it's just a shotgun apartment or duplex that I live in, so it's like my TV is literally right over there,
Yeah.
but I would rather sit on my couch and play video games and stream and stuff, so I hooked that all up too to a capture card in my PC, but then I have to put a laptop on my coffee table so I can see the chat when I do a live stream and be able to interact while I'm
Well,
playing my PS4 or
that's the good thing
you
we
know.
do. It. We pick a movie and we say, okay, like this week is Torture. It's on Tubi. So we do the countdown and warning. 5-minute warning. Press start now. Everybody logs into their Tubi accounts, which is free. Watches the movie, and then you can just watch on the phone, your phone, and just watch with our tagline FFB Movie Night, and
Okay.
just chime in. I always throw out trivia with the movie and everything. We've had some of
Yeah, that's cool.
the final girls join us on chats. We have had a couple of the movie creators that did Fried Berry and a few others that have joined us. Um, we've done some trauma films and had
Oh
Uncle
yeah.
Lloyd Kaufman join us. And it's a lot of fun.
Wow.
And it's we have a lot of great people that I mean,
Yeah, and if it's kind of interactive like
yeah.
that, like you said, then that creates the experience, and it's not it's a lot of times for me it's like watching a movie. Like every Wednesday night is movie night with me and my kids,
Uh-huh.
so they know to be here by 6:30 to do to watch movies. Ever since I've gotten better with my mental health and I'm able to participate in things in life more, it was about 2.5 years ago or so. I was like, let's do movie nights every week. No matter what else is going on, we drop everything and we do a movie night. So my kids come over and we've gone through so many films that because I told them in the beginning, I was like, I want to show you a lot of the movies that I grew up with that I thought were awesome that I used to watch like every year if it was either on TV or I would have the VHS tape.
Hmm.
And I just want the stuff that inspired me to think and to just stuff I was into. I wanted to share that with them. And I told them in the beginning, I was like, yeah, some stuff you may like, may not like, whatever, but it's not really about the movie. It's about us being together and having that experience together,
Well,
and
that's
enjoying
just,
it.
I mean, we're tweeting back and forth between each other with our tag.
Yeah,
And,
that's awesome.
it's something, if you've got a streaming TV and a way to tweet along, you're included. And, then some nights it gets weird. The nights I start posting the vintage aspect pics and that kind of fun stuff. But it's a great group of people. I mean, I will be honest, I don't fit in with a lot of groups. I'm a weirdo, I admit it. But it's just such a great group
Me
that
too.
they're welcoming to everybody. Um, we have fun with each other. It's just a chance to get silly and enjoy and watching, new and different movies or some old favorites.
Cool. Cool. Well, hopefully people will, listen to this and hopefully check that out. I want to say that I really appreciate you taking the time to come on here. And not only that, but I remember when we met, and I just had the gut feeling, and I knew at that point in time from working with you at the convention and the interactions we've had and stuff, like I had always felt that you were a good person, and this is the kind of people that I want in my social bubble. And I'm very happy that I was able to connect on Facebook like many years ago, and even though we didn't communicate that much over the years, I'm obviously went through a lot of other crazy stuff, but I'm glad that you're still out there. I'm glad that
Oh
you're
yeah,
hanging in there. I'm glad that we could connect like this. And I really hope that I get to see you when I come out,
yeah, that'd be great.
because it's like I said. I mean, it's just I'm glad that we were able to keep that connection going, because I think that's what is important in life is that we make connections along the way throughout our journeys, no matter how many years go by. In life, you may not see someone for decades and decades, but like if you can run into them again and reconnect, like I kind of feel like our discussion today is just it was kind of that. It was like that's reconnection, and I really appreciate you like taking the time. I love reading the stuff that you tweet. The interactions we've had on Facebook with like people that didn't really see what you were saying, like they didn't put two and two together, but like I felt it, like I saw what you were. I felt what you were meaning when you
Yeah,
said what you said, and I would post some, a reply to that and say, I get it, like, and I understood. And that whoever those other people were that were, I don't even remember the whole detail, but it's like, it just made me happy to know that there's still people out there that I can connect with, that were like kind of on that same
yeah,
wavelength. We care about people, we care about each other, we care about ourselves, and it's important. And that's what this podcast is about my recovery, and me reconnecting with new, friends, new and old. And it's like, all that warm fuzzy stuff.
yeah. Well,
so
with
so
my Twitter account, I try to have a lot of positive mental health stuff. Things to make you think, things to, if nothing else, help you feel that you're not the only one going through this. It may not be the same exact thing, but
yeah.
you're not alone out there.
And a lot of it is just plain fucking funny.
Random and silly.
The stuff I'm sitting here dying sometimes at the stuff you post, and I'm like, oh my god, that is freaking hilarious, man. Like and that's sometimes what people need,
Yeah.
And so I can see why you're posting the memes and all that stuff, because like that hits me, and I'm like, okay, he gets it, and I get it, and I read this, and that's what I needed at that point in time,
Uh-huh.
that moment, right at that moment. I may have not known that I needed that, but it was what I needed, and I that's what I appreciate about you. So, okay, so we're gonna wrap up. Tiger, once again, thanks again. From the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate you staying out there, staying able to be connected to.
Well, thank
I
you for
appreciate your
inviting me.
friendship, and everybody out there, you can find him. He gave his tag at Wolf Night on Twitter. As far as the podcast goes, I made a recording last week, got all messed up, but I would just say that you can find the Wormhole Manifest on Twitter at WormFestPod. I love that. It's so goofy. But then we also have a link tree, wormhole_manifest. I want to connect with people I don't know out there in the world. So if anybody is interested in being on this podcast, just shoot me an email, wormholemanifest@gmail.com. Even if you like question the things you've heard on my previous episodes and want to talk about that, I welcome it. Like I want to connect with people, and I want to see different perspectives and learn and grow and hopefully evolve. So I thank you once again, Tiger. I give a shout out to my wife. She's on Twitter at Get Off My Planet, Rachel, not Rach. And thank my friend Lisa last time at Sci_Cadillac, Sci Cadillac. And yeah, so everybody, thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.